Good evening, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day. It's Kim Ochelli on another yet Saturday night, 10 o'clock Eastern Time on UCY.tv. Hope everybody's having a nice Valentine's Day. Chuck made me eggplant parm, and it was really pretty good. So I was wondering what else everybody else is doing out there for Valentine's Day. Anything fun? Not so fun? I think Liam, Chef, is actually going to call in tonight. I think. He said he would, but, I go with the breeze, so if he calls, he calls. If he doesn't, he doesn't. How was your show, Chef?
Went pretty well.
Yeah, what'd you talk about?
Don't worry about moving the mic.
Okay.
It's okay.
All right.
We're in a different setup today, so got to get used to it. It's a slightly better mic. Hopefully, let me know, guys, if we're sounding pretty good here. Hopefully we are.
Can they hear the lighter much?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, whoops. Sorry, guys. Liam's going to call. I'm not really sure. That should be interesting, talking about Valentine's Day. I wonder what he does for Valentine's Day.
I don't know. He's certainly an interesting guy.
Yes, I'm taking callers. I always forget the number, 718-717-8296. Or you can Skype in on Chuck's Skype, which is charles.ochelli, right?
Yep, Charles.Ochelli, and of course, in case you forgot how to spell it, Ochelli.
Yes. Let's see who's in the chat room. We got Hopper.
Well, here
we got Road Dog. We got.
You want a list of the people in the chat room?
Oh yeah, you can do that.
Yes, I can. Oh, I keep forgetting to turn my head. Yes, I can. Let's see.
Who's in there?
Hold on, I'll get him.
Looks like all my friends. I started off drinking a little bit of wine this evening, but it made me sick, so I switched over to coffee. That's pretty bad.
St. Valentine was put in prison, tortured, and beheaded. Hallmark didn't tell you that. No, they didn't. And I was going to do a whole thing on the St. Valentine's Day Massacre on my show, but I got pretty angry.
Valentine's Day is about candy and sex. Flowers.
It's really just about another corporate holiday so they can push crap down your throat.
Yeah, it is, but can't you just have fun with the corporate holiday every now and again?
No.
Well, I think you can. I like candy, I like flowers, and I like sex. So it works out good for me, providing my Valentine is a willing participant.
There you go. What are you trying to say?
Not trying to say anything.
Anyway, there's your list of people that are in the chat room.
Who we got? Let's see. Jules is in, Road Dog. Some people I don't recognize. Who's 17 Meat Dog? I don't know who that is. Dolnick's there, Hopper's there. I Am Lone Frog. Joe Friday. Oh. Well, how was everybody's week? Hopefully it was a pretty good one. It got cold down here. Thank God we're not up north anymore. I'd have to hang myself all that snow that's coming in. Uh-oh, we lost the chat room. Somebody's 99 years old in the chat room?
No, it's just one of those BS things. I just got to fix it.
Oh, that's cool, though. Imagine that.
No, I don't want to live that long.
No, I'm saying a 99-year-old listening to my show.
Yeah,
Poor thing.
I doubt
they would drop dead. They wouldn't reach 100.
Candy
Candy and sex.
They wouldn't even be able to hear you.
Well, what is left in life? Not much is left in life. Candy and sex is good. Yes, that is a good song, too. what is that? I smell sex and candy.
I smell sex and candy.
That's it. Who sings that?
Marcy's Playground.
Oh, yeah.
Who's that lounging in my chair?
Try to ring up Liam.
Oh, you want me to try and get him in on the call?
He left me hanging. I'm going to be mad.
I'm sure he didn't leave you hanging. He's probably just sitting there waiting and probably not listening to the story. But we shall soon find out.
Why not? See, we got people singing the song, Who's That Lounging in My Chair?
Yeah, I did that already. Well, they're behind us a little. So.
Oh, they are? Oh. That's pretty good. Let's see. What other good Valentine songs are there? I don't know many.
You let me violate you.
Oh yeah. Oh, and I like Buck Cherry too. You're a crazy bitch, but you're
Oh,
so good. I'm
yeah.
on top of it. That's a good song. If I could get that to
Take me
play,
down.
if I could get that to play on my what do you call that thing?
The bumper
The
music at the
bumper
beginning?
music. Yeah, I would. I would get that. That's a pretty good song. Because you sometimes refer to me as a crazy bitch.
Sometimes?
Yep,
Okay.
most times. Is he coming in?
I don't see him online yet.
Oh, well, if anybody wants to call in and say hello, please do.
Yes, that number again, 718-717-8296.
You know, there's some things that I can't wrap my head around.
Well, that's okay.
My brain.
You know what you missed on my show
What?
is we were discussing all the wonderful, horrible things they do to food. Did you know that they inject herpes virus into turkeys sometimes?
Is
I
that why
had,
you get tired after you eat it?
I wasn't aware that herpes had a
I'm
fatigue.
just being stupid.
You know what? For all I don't know. I don't have herpes. I don't know too many people. From what I understand, there's a large percentage of the population that has herpes.
They actually do that? What? See, now that's what I'm saying. I can't get my brain to wrap around some things because I don't understand. Like, this is old news, obviously, because I'm behind the times a little bit, but I think it was last week or maybe the week before where they're talking about having three parents for babies. You know what? I'm really afraid to see what these kids are going to grow up to be like when they're like 10 or 15. What in the hell is going to go wrong with those people? You know, that worries me. Don't you pick a mate based on, well, if you want to have babies, that you like that person and you'd want to have their baby? So then you go and you pick somebody else because that person just didn't happen to have one or two things you wanted? That's just ridiculous. That's scary that they're doing that. Are you listening to me?
Yes, I was just trying to get something out of my eye.
Well,
That's
you don't need to see to talk to me.
well, I know, but
See, they're talking to me and they
typing
can't
in the
see me.
chat room and everything else.
Who had that idea? What are they talking about?
I was trying to get it, but
Oh, well, let me see it.
I didn't get it up yet. See, it's still loading.
Things you never knew. Oral sex DVD.
Okay.
Oh, somebody had no, but see, I won't do a DVD. It wouldn't be a DVD. It would be in my living room on nice, comfy couches. We were talking about last week how I would do, a fellatio.
Oh, your BJ 101 instruction.
Yeah, but I wouldn't do a video. Although you probably could make money if you did it on a video. But I would do firsthand, sit in the living room, have a glass of wine, and relax a little bit, and just
First hand,
go
second
on
hand.
it. Yeah. What's that noise? Do you hear that?
Which noise?
Uh, I guess nothing. All right. So how come nobody is going to call me? Where are all my friends? Captain's not there. He usually calls. Who else called? Oh, I think Hopper said he's trying to get his wife to call. I wonder if she would call. Who thinks I'm innocent?
I did post the right number the first time, and now I just reposted it in the
Oh,
chat
that's
room.
that's funny. Anon 0048 thinks I'm innocent. Ha 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 ha. Hee
Fell behind.
Oh, if only they knew. mm. An Italian leather couch. No, see, I don't particularly care for leather couches. It would have to be one of those nice, big, comfy chairs. All right, so now that you've gotten the number like 5 times, how about we call in and talk about something? Oh, look at that. Oh.
Things you never knew existed.
See. Oh, somebody's calling.
No, nobody's calling. That's just the Skype message.
Oh. I keep hearing something. Is Frankie awake?
No, I think you're just hearing the music outside.
Oh, that obnoxious crap. Well, what is the point of playing your music so loud that all you hear is bum, 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 bum? You can't even hear the words. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I hear you. Liam Shep will be around in about 10 minutes.
Oh, what's he doing?
He didn't say. He just said he'll be there in about 10 minutes.
Oh.
Ah. Let's see.
Oh, Captain's coming in. He said he'll be right there.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Good. We got our friends are in the chat room. I don't have much to talk about again. Because you know why? I'm getting tired of watching the news. It's getting very depressing to me. And I don't like to be sad. You know?
Yeah, no, I understand.
There's too much bad shit going on.
Well, that's why you gotta get your entertainment from alternative sources. I mean, I'm starting to show you that there's a whole other world out there, of conspiracy stuff, goofy stuff, of real, actual revisionist history, of actual news, and then of course, if you want to have a panic attack, you tune into AJ, that kind of thing.
Oh God, I can't listen to what's his name? Alex Jones. He does. He gives me a
Yeah,
panic attack.
that's why I abbreviated to
Oh,
AJ.
oops! I'm not allowed to say his name.
You're allowed to say it, just.
Oh, well, I don't have anything mean to say. He
Hate
just.
to push his name anyway.
I'm not pushing it. I'm just telling you he gives me a panic attack, so I have to turn him off.
But merely by mentioning it, of course, you.
Oh, well, I think Liam's around. That's the lighter I gave you for Valentine's Day. Do you like it?
Yes, you did. She got me one of those, crack torch kind of lighters, that has the butane with the high pressure, torch deal. So
It's got a spider on it.
yeah,
I thought it was pretty cool.
it does have a spider. It's black and silver colored.
Yep. That's because I'm cool like that. Well, there he is.
No, hold on.
Oh, that's just his picture.
You see that little line there? That means he's not quite on yet. When that goes away, if his picture's solid, then he's here.
Oh.
There you go. Ah, Liam Chef, I hear noise.
Hi, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on the Ochelli Charles Experience.
Ah, but it's not my show,
It's
actually.
not his show, Liam.
I'm just
invited
looking
you.
at Skype. I'm just looking at Skype.
I'm going to have to come over there and smack you a shot. No, I'm just kidding.
Why would you smack me?
It's Valentine's Day.
Oh,
Because she's
so that
violent.
explains everything.
Because she's violent.
I am not. Don't say that. I am not violent at all. So anyway, how was your Valentine's Day, Liam?
Just the normal.
What does that mean?
Masturbation in the morning and work all day. What do you think of being?
Sweet.
Well, see, I think what she was looking for is for you to define normal. I mean, because your definition of normal would certainly not be what would be commonly accepted as normal. So therefore,
Well, go ahead. Start in with me. Tell me what I'm supposed to say. I got up. I read through the last 4 or 5 chapters of the book that I'm writing. I'm sending out my review copies to sort of my first line people this week so that they can look. It's a novel about what I consider the truth about love and sex.
and this was fodder for masturbation.
Huh?
Everything. Well, that's just the morning
Everything
stuff.
is fodder.
You have to reduce the pressure a little bit in the body, the prostate. So then I worked, and I didn't manage to get out. I usually take like a 10 or 15 mile bike ride these days, just because of where I am in Florida, just to get somewhere because I'm not in a city. So I hit the road, but I didn't do that today. I stayed and I worked, and then I got involved in the never-ending make-believe battle of vaccination wars on the make-believe social network called Facebook, which now requests that I fill out some sort of document every time I try to post something onto one of my own pages, because I guess they get complaints when you're posting vaccine stuff. So now I have to do an identify what this is game every time I post something. Because I was having too many hits.
See, now that's the whole thing that doesn't make any sense to me is that they're saying that people that haven't been vaccinated for measles are giving people the measles, right? Well, how is that possible? If you've already been vaccinated for the measles, then you shouldn't be getting them in the first place.
It's cognitive dissonance, and I can show you the level of cognitive dissonance that exists within this make-believe community of people who don't really exist, who are, in favor of vaccination. Here's an article quoting PBS from a blog website, sort of professional looking, called nextnature.net, which explains to us that it was sanitation that is taking the feces out of the water that gave us polio. Now, hold on a second. How do you think that would be possible? Well, one of the anomalies of the polio era was that in the 20s, 30s, and 40s was that it was called a rich kids disease. Essentially, it seemed to strike the wealthy much more than the poor for a long period of time until they started mass spraying with DDT, and then anybody could get it. But the researchers at the time who generally ignored the fact that they were putting lead, copper, and arsenic in people's food, mercury in their food, and eventually DDT in their food and wallpaper. That doesn't matter. So what they decided to think was that it was spread by flies, and then they said, well, it must be a very small invisible object, sub bacterial size. So they decided that little poor kids who lived in filthy conditions, which spread typhus and all kinds of other diseases, developed immunity to polio because they had such unsanitary conditions that usually help people develop infectious diarrhea. But don't worry about that. So the poor kids didn't get polio because they played, as George Carlin said, they used to swim in the East River with raw sewage. So the poor kids didn't get polio, but the rich kids, but what did the rich kids really get? They got orchard fruit, and they got expensive milk. And the milk came from cows that were doused with DDT, and the orchard fruit was painted with Paris green, copper, arsenic, lead, arsenic, etc. To tell people, as I'll just share this little, I hate to call it a meme because it gives Richard Dawkins credit, but whatever. I'll share this little joke I made, and you can share it with your audience. And it is to say, polio couldn't have been caused by lead, copper, arsenic, mercury, DDT, and vaccines, and anybody who says otherwise is a denier of science. So that's what I did with the second half of my day. Well, not really, just an hour.
Well, you talked about relieving pressure of your prostate. I don't have a prostate, so I can't relieve that.
No, but you can back to again. We're back to your boobs and underwear.
Absolutely.
So, always back to the boobs and underwear. So masturbation is a great thing that releases the humor that moves the humors of the body in one way or the other. And I have seen some studies, although who knows, that regular masturbation for men moves the material in the seminiferous tubules and the testicles so that you have less toxin accumulation down there. But really, it just is so good for your body. You produce all sorts of nice things, some endorphins, you might produce some oxytocin. You might bond with yourself.
Wow. Well, you better be pretty good if you bond with yourself.
I'm so good to myself. I light some candles. I turn down the lights. I ask myself what my interests are and what I hope to be in 5 years.
Do you use essential oil?
Have you ever had to get yourself drunk, though, in order to consent? That's the question. Because that, sir, is assault.
That's a really great joke. I mean, that's like a stand-up comedy joke. Like, yeah, I masturbated. I had to get myself drunk because I knew I wouldn't go along with it otherwise.
Yeah, because after all, poor decision-making does follow alcohol. And, after all, in order to be with myself, I would have to be something there.
I asked myself if I was really going to love myself tomorrow or if it was just a one-time thing. And I said I didn't want to be hurt again.
Oh, wow.
But did you actually call yourself the next day? Probably not.
Oh, that would be fucking fun.
I'm so good to myself. I'm always there for myself the next day.
Awesome.
Sometimes I'm there for myself twice in a row, which is... Yeah.
At least you don't just, screw them and leave. That's good.
No, I never screw myself and leave. I'm right back. Yeah.
I come right back for some more.
Yeah, you gotta wait. The body for men anyway it's different for women, but the body has this excellent timer. I don't know about you, Charles, but
I'll help you answer that.
Yeah, well, you release a little, and then if I'm not with a partner, a female, male, a donkey, whatever you're into, if I'm not with a partner, I have this perfect 15-minute sleep zone. It just happens. You know what I mean? I release. There's the And the prolonged orgasm. Do you guys know how to make a prolonged male orgasm?
A what?
Yes, I
Pro-
do.
Yeah, go ahead, Charles.
No, I actually do that. Yeah, I have really good control.
No,
I, I
prolonged.
must I must have missed that question. What was the question?
Do you know how to make
Prolonged
a?
prolonged male orgasm as opposed to just the quick burst.
Oh yeah.
No, no, I don't just mean a prolonged like a prolonged time to orgasm. I mean an actual longer orgasm than, well, I suppose than maybe you were used to having or so.
Well, how many men can actually have two in a row?
Well, not two in a row. I mean, there's a refractory period. I mean, it's not like cocoon, cocoon, cocoon. You know, you're not shooting
What the hell is
shells.
that?
It's one of the big guns over, in World War II. Cocoon, cocoon, cocoon. It's more like
He's talking
this.
like artillery shells.
The
Yeah.
Wow,
artillery shells.
that might hurt.
It
Anyway,
goes cocoon, and then you send the guy to the line, and he gets the shell, and they deliver it in the Jeep, and you reload it, and that's like 10, 15 minutes.
No, I have a variable menu of choices for my
Go
control.
on.
So
Well, speak the language of specifics.
speak the language of specifics. Okay, I can have the one sudden singular burst, which is about a 30-second maximum, and that's fine if that's what I choose to do. I can also have the more stretched out, about 2-3 minute long. But it's a little bit more of a mellow sort of thing.
Yeah,
Appears to have ebb and flow to it as
right,
far as sensitivity goes.
right.
Then there is also when I'm in the exact right frame of mind and I'm very well concentrated, I can have the very consistent, but the time is lost on the amount of stretch it's a singular lighting up of those areas of the brain, as it were, and it's a singular lighting up of those nerve endings, but it's a slow burn that stays consistent, and I really don't have a good amount of time on that one. I do know that it takes a while.
true. I actually think I'm blushing. That takes a lot to do that.
Well, I
Good.
was thinking about a good,
Uh,
clean way to explain something like that.
Do we
there
have
you
to be
go.
clean? We're
No,
talking about
Not on my show.
orgasms, male orgasm.
Not on my show. Some people in the chat room are leaving because I guess they're offended by
I don't
orgasms.
find it
Wait,
dirty to
wait a
discuss.
second. People are leaving because they're offended by the idea of an orgasm?
I don't know.
Apparently.
Yeah, whatever.
Really?
Uh,
Well, let me ask you a question. Why is every single movie, book, television program obsessed with sex, obsessed with getting characters into having sex, and then when you actually talk about sex, people say you're filthy? I mean, everything wants to titillate you. Interesting, word, titillate you. It wants to make you excited and think about it. And then when you just say, yeah, okay, that's good, they say, oh, what kind of scoundrel are you? What kind of, oh, you dirty, dirty. Wait a second. I'm talking about something that my body does. I mean, my body does it. It's like talking about how to be a better runner. Or I just took like maybe a mile jog because I hadn't been out. I was working too much, so I just took a jog, 3 big laps, and it's probably I don't know 2/3, 3/4, something like that of a mile, maybe a little more. And if I told you how I did that and how I stretched and how I'm stretching my back and doing a couple yoga stretches for my gluteal muscles, you'd think, oh, okay. But if I say that masturbation, which is rubbing part of my body that I didn't invent, I didn't get it from the porn store, it came with my body. It was here when I got here. When I
Pretty much.
use that, it becomes excited to the degree that it does. And after a while, it releases a fluid that you can use for a variety of things. Unfortunately, I've probably killed billions and billions of prospective people just in putting them in toilet paper right down the toilet. So that makes me and every male in the world the greatest mass murderer in history. But anyway, thank God sperm aren't people yet. Maybe Christians will get weird and start saying sperm are people.
I was going to say, give the conservatives out there a little bit of time. They'll figure out a way to classify them as people.
Every sperm is sacred.
Maybe.
Uh, so this is part of my
Oh, well,
body.
that's a problem with what I want to teach.
What do you want to teach?
Oh, you must not have been listening last week. We were talking
I
about
don't
how
think I
no,
know.
we were talking about how a lot of women think that they can do fellatio really,
Technique
really well.
fellatio, that's what she's after.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, I guess that would be considered a wasted person.
Oh, do you swallow?
Uh,
Because it's good. Because it's good for
it's good
the.
protein. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's what is it good for? It's one of the brain chemicals. It's serotonin,
Oh.
right?
Well,
It's a serotonin producer. If you swallow sperm, not that I would know, but it's not
well,
really something
I
I think
really didn't go into studying it that much. I just thought it would be rude to spit it out when you were done. That's
of.
all. That's my opinion.
Sperm swallow
Are you actually Googling something?
serotonin. Yeah, sperm swallow serotonin. Attention, ladies, semen is an antidepressant. Psychology Today.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Uh,
Very interesting.
yeah. So what do big deal. They say that it's absorbative through the vaginal tissue. I imagine that it would be through the mouth and everything like this. So tired of hearing about risky sex. I never know what people mean. Do they mean sex like on a moving train? Sex on the top of an elevator in an action movie? What is risky sex?
I'm not really sure.
Yeah. What's not risky about? I mean, you're opening your heart. You're in this crazy Judeo-Christian culture where everything is wrong and everything is bad. But let me tell you how I have a longer. Now I was masturbating since as long as I can. Well, maybe 5, 6. I don't know. And I. Oh, did I mute? Yeah, I can't hear you.
No, we muted for a second.
I was very happy masturbating, and I never really I never really was convinced to do otherwise. I never was convinced that it would send me to hell. And maybe because the only people who tried to tell me that were these Catholics that I knew, who already knew were hypocrites. So I just like, no, I'm masturbating. I remember once I was a little kid and I was sleeping over on their couch, and I was masturbating. When you're a kid, looks like you're like riding a pony. You like face the bed and you sort of bounce your butt up in the air. I remember doing that. Um, and I remember I woke up and this whole family of Catholics was standing over me,
Oh, wow.
looking at me. And I actually felt angry at them. Like, mind your own freaking business. I swear to God, I was 5. And I thought, just mind your own business. Fucking, excuse me, you a-holes. I mean, give a guy a break. It's morning. What do you want me to do?
Right, it's morning. And then
Yeah.
it's noontime.
Right. So maybe I don't know if it scarred me. Maybe it did a little. But I never,
Maybe.
no, I don't know. I
The
never
best
stopped.
part of waking up is reaching in your own cup. Okay, sorry.
Oh, wow.
So I learned when you finally as a male start to ejaculate, it's weird and it's not really pleasant. You like produce this fluid. You have to put it somewhere. You put it in a sock. You put it in a sheet. You put it in toilet paper. You put it in a paper towel. You put it in your hand or in your belly button.
Your
You know?
belly button?
Yeah.
What, do you save it for later?
No. You have to get to the bathroom. So you either push it, into your belt, up to your belt. You know what I mean? You pull it into your belly button, or you push it down among
Oh,
the
wow.
among the
Eat some
reeds.
now, save some for later? Is that how that works?
No, you want to wash it off, but you want it to dry.
Oh.
The amazing thing about it is it dries very quickly. It's an amazing fluid,
Not
really.
not according to what's that movie? That
Some
Mary.
Fat Mary.
Yeah, does it get stuck in her hair and it's all?
Yeah, but it gets very sticky.
But it wasn't dry.
Well, it became mousse very quickly. It
Yeah.
Becomes a bit more viscous, as it were, I guess.
becomes a hair product.
There you go.
Mhm.
What I noticed was that there's this idea that as a male you're supposed to like masturbate and then you explode and then you don't touch it anymore. But I found that if you are ejaculating and you just keep essentially the pressure on the various parts of the penis that feel good, you can have orgasms for a couple of minutes or more. And it just, as Charles was saying, you sort of cycle through this feeling state. So it. I mean, you learn it by when you're having sex, you don't just pull out. I mean, I hope you don't just stop when. Well, that's the problem, I guess, about pregnancy. But
It's one of them.
Good. I just love the casual phraseology there. That's the problem with pregnancy.
but I once had a girlfriend who was on the pill, and I don't really approve of the pill anymore. But I got to be honest, it was like so good. you know, you know what I mean? Like anchors away, full steam ahead.
No, I don't dig condoms either. No.
And I don't trust condoms to ejaculate inside of somebody because if you keep pumping, it's going to spill. So I just always do the same thing. Surprise, surprise, right in your eyes. Bang, right in the stomach.
Ow, in the eye? That
No,
burns.
no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh, all right.
You pull out, you put it on the stomach, you wash it off, you pee, and you start over. That's what I do. If anybody
Graphic
was
description.
Well, happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day,
Happy
everybody.
Valentine's, everybody. Take it, ejaculate, pull out, ejaculate, wipe it off, pee, and start over
Why do you have to pee?
to get the semen out of the urethra.
Oh, so you can start over again?
Yeah, so there's no, you know, you want to,
Oh, got ya.
yeah, you want to push the semen out of the urethra.
Well, you start fresh.
I'm thinking, what?
Start fresh.
Start
Yeah.
fresh. There
Yeah.
you go.
So you
Clean
always
slate.
hydrate. Always hydrate.
There you go. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely essential, yeah.
Yeah.
After you have sex, you should, if you're a guy, you should definitely wash off your wang and pee to reduce any inflammation, any kind of bacterial thing that you could have. It's helpful. Put a little coconut oil in it. I use something called Sovereign Silver, which is a silver hydrosol as a spray, and that reduces.
Well, that's awfully romantic. Hold on a minute, baby. I got a spray here because I might have some kind of germ.
Well, girls' vaginas are full of bacteria, and sometimes there are, everybody gets affected by everybody else, and I don't, I mean, I don't think it should ruin the mood because I'll be right back into action soon after.
As soon as I get that spray going, I'll be right back.
Well, just a little spray, a little gel. I was circumcised. Were you circumcised? We did this before, Charles.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So at the tip of the glands is supposed to be covered by the foreskin, which lubricates it with mucus. But when they cut that off when you're a child because of the ancient Hebrews craziness, which they shouldn't be doing to us still, you lose this protective layer. And so if you're circumcised, you walk around with this part that's supposed to be protected exposed. Mm-hmm. And I find that it's just too sensitive. And so I have to use these. Silver is an antibacterial, antiviral, virostatic anyway, anti-inflammatory, and it's totally non-toxic. So it doesn't hurt, sting, burn, stink. Anyway, go ahead. What do you want? I'm on your show, so tell me what you guys are talking about.
Well, I was actually just thinking about turning in my coffee cup for a glass of wine. That's what I was just thinking about. That's all I got to say. I think I might need to get a little buzz going on.
I'm an observer participating here, so
you are a captive.
Yes, I am.
All right, so it's just me, huh?
No,
not at all. We do welcome phone calls, although some people did freak out and jump out of the chat room, and I think I've actually turned off the radios. But okay.
Why do you say that? I think people are probably tuning in, going, "What a frank, interesting discussion about sex," and thank goodness that we're allowed to talk about it.
That's what I would do. That would be my attitude because I don't have this puritanical view toward it. But apparently, this caused a bit of a visceral reaction in the chat room. If you observe it.
Why? Because some people left?
Well, people laughed and said some pretty insulting things and just dropped away.
Well, maybe they're afraid of their own sexuality. I mean, I spent a lot of my life being afraid of my own sexuality. I was raised here. If you were raised in this country, you're going to be afraid of your sexuality. You're afraid of your sex organs. You're afraid of orgasm. You're afraid of penises and vaginas. You're afraid of your own attractions to the opposite sex or the same sex. You're just afraid. It's not natural to be afraid. It's programmed. And I think that because it's not natural, I think the programming actually creates a more hostile response.
Well, see, when you're talking to me, you're talking to somebody who does not fit any of the typical profiles regarding this. I was raised in what some people would consider a savage fashion regarding stuff like this, but I just don't have the same stress, points of stress that other people do about the subjects.
What do you mean savage fashion? I'm curious.
Sexuality was. It didn't have all the same connotations that it appears that many of my fellow citizens seem to take with it. I didn't have any sort of repressive attitude toward it. Sex was commonplace for me at a very young age, all around me. It just, I mean, well, to give the long and the short of it, as it were, no pun intended there, but to give the long and the short of it, I mean, you're talking about I had a mother who was prostitute, drug addict, and her behavior, like sex was a mechanism in order to function in her world, as it were. So this is
What
what I was witness to.
what was the
Plus,
drug?
different times, different drugs. Most prominently throughout most of her life was probably heroin, but there was a vacillation back and forth between heroin and cocaine for a while.
Okay, those are tough drugs.
Hmm.
Um, those are really hard drugs. But most people in America are drug addicts. They're addicted to caffeine, which is a drug. They're addicted to nicotine, which is most definitely one of the most addicting drugs in the world
Those are my two right now.
Well,
in the pharmacopoeia.
but it's
Well,
They're
a,
addicted to sugar. I mean, I think some massive percentage of the United States population is addicted to white sugar. If they try to stop it, they have terrible mood swings and crashes.
well, no, absolutely, and I understand what you're saying, but there is a vast amount of difference between requiring your cup of coffee in the morning and having your life revolve around your next fix. And
I agree. I agree. I just want to point out that, we say people are drug addicts, but everybody in this country is a drug addict. Unless you take yourself off of the pharmaceutical food system, and it's really impossible to do because nothing we grow is really natural.
oh,
But
absolutely.
between coffee, cigarettes, and sugar, everybody's a chemical addict. And try to get people to change their diets. I mean, just try. Try to suggest like a healthy change, and you will find a level of recalcitrance and hand waving, excuse making that you would be,
Well,
would.
absolutely, but what I'm talking about is a subculture in illicit drug world, as it were. Because of the prohibition and and the things that come along with that. There is a subculture that existed in the 70s and 80s for certain, and into the 90s, I'm very sure, where you had sort of an underground world. I was familiar with the chemical makeups of things. I was familiar with the trafficking aspects. I was familiar with the black market aspects. On a street level. I grew up around bikers and stuff like that. Guys who were connected to Sicilian families, things like this. Ex-cons who were in and out of the revolving door, so to speak. So my childhood experience is a little bit different foundationally than a
It
lot.
is. So, how? So you saw sex as what?
Well, I had a dual attitude toward it. First of all, it was just sort of part of doing business in a general sense, and that comes from a lot of different aspects, not just the prostitution end of it, but regarding those who profit from prostitution, those who are pimps and things like that, those who run their women part time, that kind of thing. So I saw it from that perspective. But at the same time, I also took on a different attitude about it regarding the intimate contact with another human being and how that was rather special in my opinion, and was something that was actually very spiritually sacred at the same time, which I developed through my own exploration regarding this. So I found it to be spiritually sacred and not. Not counterintuitive to having a religious, sense about things. It connected directly to your spirituality, your physical nature, your psychology, and your motivation for living. In a sense, was partially dictated by your sexuality. This is the viewpoint that I developed very early on. So but I dealt with it from two different angles. I could see the relevance of it as merely a transaction, and then also a spiritual sacred point, as it were.
Let me think. Well, I'll come back and I'll tell you how sex was for me. I didn't see it. I wanted to see nudity, like every boy. I was fascinated by the first Playboy magazine I could get. I was traumatized at about 5, like probably some kids in the neighborhood. But we had a 21 or 2 year old in the apartment complex. Well, it was it was a rambling apartment complex that was attached to a hospital, university hospital. And there was a guy there who was going to school, and he had his family there. They were Catholics, and they babysat me. And the son was 21, and he was a shady guy. And one day well, he probably did this to a bunch of people, but he brought me aside and he shoved his adult male penis into my face and tried to get it into my mouth, and I couldn't make it work. I'm like, I don't know what you're trying to do here. And I was really grossed out and sickened. And I think that it put me off of it made me think that there was something wrong with men and penises for a long time. So by the time I developed a sexual interest, I was always, I just would never let girls give oral sex to me. I don't know why they call them blowjobs. I hope you never blow while you're doing this. Not really, it's more of a suck job.
Yeah,
I've always had that question as well.
yeah. Why do they call it a blowjob?
Stop it.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Stop it.
Well,
No.
see, now that's what you're supposed to do to a woman.
Yeah, I understand the hum job thing. That makes some
No,
sense.
no, not the hum, but you don't blow.
No, you
Well,
don't.
Hummer, yeah, I get the Hummer.
No, blowing. I never quite got that.
We're not balloons, everybody.
Well.
No, thankfully. Some people might be shaped as though they were balloons, but
Right.
no, balloon and human body are not.
You know
But
what I find fucked up though is that the more people I talk to, the more people I've learned have been somehow
well,
sexually molested.
yeah, affected.
I mean, I'll share. My grandfather did it to me when I was let's see, I was about 10
Mm.
until I guess I was about 13, and that's when I started going into drug rehabs and boarding schools for the incorrigible,
Mm.
um, you know, non-authoritative listening juvenile.
Yeah.
It would take me a bit of time to psychologically prepare to discuss the brutality I suffered.
Well, I'm not looking to share anybody else's experience. I'm
Well,
just saying from people
yeah,
that I've talked to, it seems that more and more people that's happened to, and
I think it's pretty common that there was a family member or somebody. In my case, it's somebody you're left with alone a lot, and it was just that my mother was recklessly kind of irresponsible in some ways for being a doctor, or naive or both, and just is not a very sophisticated person when it comes to understanding sexuality to this day, is not incredibly sophisticated or complex in that way. I didn't like what happened. I know that what happened to other people was worse. I didn't like it, and it wasn't. I mean, it made me sick, and it made me not. I'll tell you what it did. It made me afraid of men. It made me not like males. It made me not like my own penis. It made me feel bad about sex. But I wanted sex, and when it came to sex, when I finally discovered it, I wanted to hump and kiss and all that kind of stuff. But when it came to having penetrative sex when I was older, I'd have sort of flashbacks to this guy shoving his wang in my face, and I'm like, oh God, I don't want to think about that. And then I finally just broke down. I talked about it. I cried my bitter tears. I realized that he was either a closeted homosexual who grew up in this terribly Catholic family or whatever. That the reason that what he did was wrong was because, number one, I was too young to give consent, and number two, he didn't have my frickin' consent, and
right.
That's the bottom line. Like, I've met 10 and 11-year-old guys who are gay who say, yeah, I started having sex at 10. I'm like, how did you? He's like, I wanted to. Well, okay, good for you. And they don't have any negative feelings about it, but I did not want the experience, and it turned me off from a lot of things. So, masturbation was like a great release because nobody could hurt me, right? Nobody can hurt you. And you get to have this full range of sexual experience in what I call the holodeck, stealing from Star Trek. You get to go in your holodeck and have sex with anybody that you think is really attractive, and you get to have sex with them.
Right,
So,
right.
so I banged my way through everybody in the probably eighth, ninth grade without really having to date the seventh, eighth, ninth grade without actually having to. And I dated a little, and you're so awkward at that age. You kiss and fumble, and you don't know where. Anyway.
And you go through the composite imagination, you know, schemes, as it were,
Mm.
where it's like, well, gee, what would this look like if, and so on and so forth. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting time in your development, that's for sure.
Yeah, but we're just intensely confused about sex because in most in foraging tribes around the world, which is our ancestry, the kids group, which is essentially 12 and under, from 5, 6, 7 to 10, and then maybe 10 to 12, mess around, kiss, have little boyfriends and girlfriends, simulate sex play, but nobody can get pregnant, so the adults don't really care. When you get to be an age at which you can get someone pregnant or become pregnant, you're separated from that through a ceremony, a ritual, a coming of age ritual. And it's understood at that point that you'll be sexually active with people in your age group, which is going to be 13 to 17 or something like that. Maybe a little older. It depends on the tribe. 15 to 20, Uh, and then, after that, you'll probably start to have partners in your peer group as you age. So, 15, 16, 17, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 20s to 30s, 30s to 40s, etc. And you have these partnerships over life, a lifetime. You have different partnerships in different parts, different moments in your life, and that's it. So the idea that an adult would, uh, you know, number one, sex isn't forbidden. So if you're a sexual person, you don't have to hide it, make excuses for it, pretend to be flamboyant or anything like that. You're just a sexual person. All people are sexual people. That's an ancient tribal understanding. All people are sexual. There's no shame in it. You're just sexual. You have a vagina or you have a penis and you have orgasms, and that's good. No big deal. Nobody thinks twice. So you don't have to get weird about it. You don't have to become a, God-fearing pervert, holding all your secret wishes on the inside because you can just more or less you had sex when you were yeah, sex of a sort, you had I don't mean intercourse, but you fooled around when you were 12 with your age group and 13 in your age group and 17 in your age group and 20 in your age group. And so it's all passé. You've done it,
Well,
you
what
know.
I find, so I studied psychology for uh, not quite a year in college, and I'm often amazed at how two people could have very similar experiences, and like one person can be okay. Either they push it, all the way far back into their brain and they don't give it another thought, or they move it where it belongs. So, you know, they put it where it belongs and they can move on and have a healthy sexual relationship with their husband, their wife, their partner, whomever. But then on the other side of that coin, you'll have somebody that is deathly afraid and they can't get past it. And it's always fascinated me as to why that is. Is it because somebody's just stronger than another person, or
Well, I think strength might be it, it, some people are born with more courage, and some people have courage thrust upon them. And some people are never challenged because and some people are just, we have these fiery, strong, or very earthy, stubborn constitutions, and we think this is something we want. Like, what motivated me was that I knew that I didn't have the childhood that I wanted. I knew my mother was very difficult, and my father was unbearably apt, just ugh. And his wife was just crazy. So I knew I didn't like any of those people. I'll hold out some exceptions for my mother, who did her best but was a mess. But I knew I didn't like the parents that I had very much. So I understood that I hadn't had the life that I really felt that I was here to have. I always understood that at that point. I said, well, I'm not done yet. I haven't even begun to have the life that I want to have. That was a motivating factor. Like, no matter what I was going through, I thought, well, this isn't where I'm stopping. I'm not done. Um, I'm not staying here with these crazies. I'm going to have a different life.
Right.
And I that just was something that was in me. I don't know. At times, of course, I despaired. And when I lost my partner to an aneurysm, I actually stopped thinking that, and I thought, I don't know if I can handle this anymore. Actually, I don't know if I can handle this world anymore. It's just too difficult.
Right. Right. But then you move on.
Move on. No, you move through.
You move through. That's a better term. You're right. I think every experience that we have, whether it be what we're talking about now or any experience, I think changes your personality in some way.
Well, interactions lead to alterations. This is for sure.
Always.
Like I know a lot of people have said to me, when with my grandfather, oh, you must have been promiscuous. Well, actually, no,
Who would
was.
say that to you?
Well, because a lot of times when teenage girls have been molested, they become confused and they almost
from a psychological standpoint,
they become
promiscuity usually follows after early childhood trauma with females. This is one of those, psychological wisdoms.
Okay.
but I didn't, because to me, I didn't want to be that, that loose girl, But not many now, all of the radio people know now it wasn't something that I shared for a very long, long time. But I didn't become,
But what's wrong with being promiscuous? I mean, there are tribes of people all over the world who are promiscuous. The Trobriander tribe is incredibly promiscuous. They allow multiple pairings. The Maasai, who are a herding culture and are very possessive and demanding of women, allow a period of promiscuity around the age of like 13 to 15. It's understood that you're supposed to go through essentially as many partners as you can. It doesn't end up being that many, but
well, because it differs for young girls, young women. I don't want to use the word girl because I can't.
why?
Because it bothers me to think of a 10-year-old just having sex. It just does.
Well, I'm not talking. Okay. No, I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about the word girl versus woman. Because, if you said guys, unfortunately, I come from the Northeast, and my grandmother called people gals and guys or girls and guys. So I can't shake that habit.
In our culture, it's different because, a guy can bed all kinds of women and he's cool. But a girl turns around and sleeps with the same amount of men. She's a slut. She's a whore.
Well, men are now called male sluts. So, now what you're talking about is the Judeo-Christian mindset that says that women are property of men and sex is governed by the state. But if your sex life is your business and you have sex, and I don't mean intercourse, but you have sexual experience, sensual experience of your choosing, and you enjoy it, you don't have to go all the way.
Well, I agree with that. Again, I don't explain myself to anybody for anything that I do. I never have.
Right.
But as an adolescent female, it can be really, really tough.
Right.
And like I've said it many times, you couldn't pay me enough money to go back to being an adolescent female. It was probably the worst time of my life.
Right.
And I would not want to do that again.
I was writing the other day in a cafe, and the waitress came up, and she was young, 19, 20, something like that. What are you doing? Well, I'm writing a book. What's it about? Sex. Oh, tell me about it. Right? Immediately. Tell me about it. Okay. This is a novelization of experiences I've had, and it's fictionalized autobiography, and it's fictionalized. I mean, it's not precise, and there are some things that are borrowed, some things that are borrowed from now and put back then, and some things that are borrowed from other people and put anyway. So we talked about it, and she said, "Oh, well, it's a great time to be writing that." Because of this 50 Shades of Grey. So we started talking about that. And I explained that 50 Shades of Grey was not only very badly written, but it was badly conceived because do you know this thing, 50 Shades of Grey?
Mm-hmm.
Have you
Yeah.
read it or looked at it?
No, I haven't actually sat down and read it. I'm pretty familiar with the storyline.
Okay, well, in the story, there's somehow a very good-looking 22-year-old virgin.
Hmm.
Right.
That doesn't sound right, but go ahead.
No, it's not right. This story was written by someone who appears to me to be kind of somebody who suffered a lot of depression, a sort of sad English housewife and TV executive and of some sort. It's not very clear what or how. Not that anyway. And the thing is all written. It's very badly written in the present progressive, and the present progressive is uh, how you would explain an accident to a cop. Like, so this guy keeps driving, and then he doesn't stop, then he hits the rail. Well, that's okay for 20 seconds of dialogue, but these are 300 something page books. I walk into the office. He looks at me. I drop my panties and fart. All right. So in a real novel, you'd say something like, "It was Sunday. I knew I had to get to the office. I had a plan that day to be interviewed and the next day, and so I went in. But previously, so you're able to use time to differentiate between moments. So,
Hmm.
so not only is this, badly written, but it's also written badly. The girl goes in she's a college student somehow writing, not really writing for a school newspaper, but taking her friends something to go interview some very wealthy guy who happens to be great looking and shirtless and hairless and all the rest of the kind of stuff that you have to be in the movies with perfect muscles. He likes her, so follows her, and he's, a sociopath. He's got no emotional availability at all. He wants her to sign a non-disclosure agreement so he can start doing an S&M relationship with her. She doesn't sign it. She's never had sex. They have sex. It's great sex. Now, this should tell you this is a fantasy. She then gives him like the best suck job, I should say, rather than blow job that he's ever had, which tells you that it's an incredible fantasy because it might take decades to get good at sex. Decades.
It takes a long time to get good at what I want to teach. Isn't that right, honey?
Well, I would argue that there are some people with natural talents that just seem to emerge regardless of what we're talking about.
I don't think they're virgins at 22.
Well, no, they're probably
So no,
not.
I take Charles at his word. Some people are sexual when they're very young, like I 15, 16, 17. They're just ready to go. I think I was ready to go at 15. I was ready to go. But we weren't really allowed to. So it just got repressed and repressed. So this girl goes into this thing, and then she has a 3-book not start and stop relationship with this guy, all in that present progressives. We go, we do this, we do that, no past tense. Then at the very end of 3 books, 3 horrifying books about people getting cropped or whipped on the bottom, who cares? They get married and have kids, and that's it.
And that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
And it takes 3 books to do that.
It takes 3 books to do that. 3 books of badly written tripe, very successful tripe. So it's a movie now, and it's probably a good-looking soap commercial. Apparently, there's no full frontal nudity. The guy never has his pants off, so I don't know why you ladies are going. And I don't think you don't. I guess you see a little bit of sex, but I remember 9.5 Weeks.
Yes, I do. But I want to comment really quickly on that. Most of what I consider to be prepubescent to middle-aged female masturbatory aids regarding the genre of movies anymore don't require any sort of frontal nudity. I mean, take a look at your Twilight and this kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Those are for little tiny teenagers. I mean, once you're an adult woman, you're like, just show me your butt.
No,
but I don't think so. Let's ask the woman: would you rather in a movie that you're trying to get turned on see a good-looking man's behind or not see his behind?
Listen, she just stepped out of the room, but I'm telling you now that when those movies were out and in the theater, I was dragged to them by full-grown women. and they weren't the only ones in the theater.
So why do you think that? Well, I think that women want to see the same thing that men want to see. I think women like to see the behind and the legs, and they just want to see the whole package because it's a masturbatory aid. Women like butts. They really do. They like, I think, because the butt is sort of the piston, like the driver, for the sex act. So they're like, okay, that's a good butt. That's a good,
But
you
now
know.
she just stepped back in the room. But the thing is, regarding this, I'm telling you that there are plenty of full-grown adult women that are just as interested in the Twilight Saga as they're, I mean, it's not an insignificant amount.
Well,
So
I
what does
am.
that tell? What does
No,
that? Go
I
ahead.
look
Go ahead.
because it romanticizes things. I'm not gonna say all little girls, but as a woman, I want to be treated like a lady. I want to be.
What does that mean?
What does what mean? Being treated like a lady?
A lady in the medieval sense of, washing socks?
No, no. I would
I mean,
like.
a lady was somebody who didn't have sex with anybody.
You got to understand, I find this extremely amusing, what you're about to do here, Liam. Because,
I'm not
again, I have
talking
a
about
weird...
washing clothes on a rock kind of lady, but all right.
What? No, I mean the whole notion of chivalry was that the women was not to be touched.
No, I
The whole
know we had that, and I disagree with that particular. Um,
Because it's not true. It's just not true. Women like sex and men like
well,
sex.
of course we do, but I also think that women want to be treated. Well, okay, I'll speak for myself. I want to be to my partner to Chuck the most important person in his life.
Well, that's
Not
not because you have sex. That's
no, I'm
because
not talking about forget. Well, I'll push away sex for
but
a
we
minute.
can't. But you can't. You just change the subject then. If we're talking about sex, just good sexual relationships, then men like sex and women like sex, and everybody would prefer that everybody was honest, and I think everybody would prefer that everybody was kind.
Well,
Because
let's rewind this just a second, because you missed part of the
Yeah, I thought we were
conversation.
talking about like the Twilight and how it's
Well,
romanticized.
that's because you got an incomplete version of
I
what
had
it
to
was
go
we were
refill
talking
my
it's
about.
okay.
water.
We're fine. No, I just let it. I'm good. We're just talking. I don't remember what we were talking about. Go
Well,
ahead, Chuck.
here's what the thing is, okay? When we started talking about the 50 Shades of Grey, and there's no frontal nudity in the movie, and that's kind of the way it is, and it's really,
There's no below the waist of the butt nudity. As far as I understand, he keeps his pants on. Like I don't. I mean, I'm not going to go. All right. If this is one of the sexiest movies of all time,
mm.
I mean, it's not Last Tango in Paris, maybe. But that's also kind of disturbing. But 9.5 Weeks was also really stupid because there was almost no sex in the movie, and it was about a stalker and his prey. All of these movies are about sociopaths.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But what I'm trying to tell you is that there is a consistent lack of grittiness regarding the display when these movies are constructed with the female audience in mind, and it's not simply because of the adolescent female. There are 40-year-old, 50-year-old, 60-year-old women that go and partake in these types of movies where you have this very either nondescript or suggestive sexuality as opposed to something a little more bluntly displayed, and that's a common theme, and they are able to market this to women specifically.
Well, I think
uh,
we're a penis shaming culture. I think that, we have doctors who clip part of the penis off when you're a child, and the penis is an aggressor, and it's a scary, bad thing. And so, of course, they don't want to show the penis. Also, female full frontal nudity is very different than male full frontal nudity because you guys have a carpet over your bits and pieces.
Not all of us. We've had this conversation already.
Yeah, but even if you don't have a carpet over your bits and pieces, they're tucked under between your legs. Our clitorises tend to be a few inches long.
well, yeah, most guys out there anyway.
Well, they tend to hang at a couple to, whatever. You're able to see them, in the front. So males, have this thing sticking out that we don't really get to hide. Women, full frontal nudity is like you're always wearing clothes, no matter what, except on your boobies. And on
Well,
that note,
well, no, I don't know. I maybe I live in a little fairy tale world. I don't know, but some of that stuff is, I don't know.
What?
I haven't drank enough wine yet to
Okay.
fully, fully.
Well, in the Sex and the City movie, they showed a penis at the end. Uh, I don't think that you need to see the penis, but I'm just saying for a movie that's supposedly really sexual, you have an incredibly the 50 Shades of Grey. You have this incredibly controlled scenario where a woman who's a virgin, whose name is so ridiculous, even porn stars wouldn't accept it. Anastasia Steele, like wow, okay. And then the guy's
That
name
is
just
80s porn star name right there, boy.
yeah. Hi, I'm Anastasia. You know the Tsar's daughter who disappeared.
Mm.
Okay. And then the guy is a sociopath who can't have relationships, but he suddenly falls and he can't help himself. That's just so boring. And by the way, it's Twilight fan fiction. It started as internet fan fiction of the Twilight series. So that tells you where we live.
Totally consistent with my point.
So why is Twilight appealing to people? It's about essentially a menage a trois. It's about a vampire who is kind of gay. He won't have sex with her. He won't touch her. So he's gay. He's truly homosexual all the way through, and he, won't do her. Then there's the werewolf guy who just wants to fuck her brains out, just fuck her brains out, and he's the better looking of the two anyway. And and then she chooses essentially the gay sexless vampire.
I'll make a terribly sexist generalization here, but I do believe it is accurate that women have a great appreciation for interpersonal conflict, triangulation, the confrontational ends of interpersonal relationships coming to fruition.
Oh, get the hell out
Tension.
of here!
Fascinating.
Absolutely
That's,
not.
that's what my opinion is.
Fascinating.
That is, I will
So provocative.
speak up for all women. That is absolutely not true.
So glad I didn't say that. I think that women have been trained to get secondary gains out of relationships because their primary power has been stolen from them by the culture. I think that they're not allowed simply to be the sexual creatures, the earth mothers, etc., that they really are. And so they get secondary gains by sort of moving people around a little bit on the chessboard as they can. Men get secondary gains or even primary gains by moving people around on the chessboard as they can.
That's correct. Exactly. Is there's a vicarious nature to the way that manipulation occurs because that's been encouraged because of the disenfranchisement of the female's power from a societal
Well, we
point of
only
view.
have the power
That's what's
because
happened.
you've given it to us.
But what I'm saying is that because there's been such a long-standing cultural understanding that women are not in power, they wind up playing the more manipulative game. Women will cause two other people to fight with each other. Men will beat the crap out of each other, generally speaking.
Well, I
because
will
we've
agree
been
with that.
encouraged to do this.
Because I will agree with that. Women, I have very few female friends because of the drama.
Why? Yeah, exactly.
Because there's too much. It's too much. I rather sit around with a bunch of men drinking a couple beers and playing a game of poker than sitting around with a bunch of women watching some stupid TV show, drinking a cup of tea, and bullshitting about where this one bought her sweater. Because quite frankly, I don't give a fuck where you bought your sweater.
Because
I don't care.
Because men, in general, although it has been discouraged in recent years because there is this, a need to experience things in a secondary fashion, like gladiatorial sports and things like this, have been encouraged so that, the tribal ramping up of conflict can be experienced in a secondary nature as opposed to in a primary nature. But even so, women were even longer trained to do things in a secondary nature because it wasn't acceptable for them to participate in direct conflict from a societal standpoint. That's my estimation again, but this is why you see more drama with, females, generally speaking.
Well, unless you, but of course, if you consider war drama, then men are the most dramatic of all. I mean, we enact our dramas on nature herself. We rip apart the natural, and I know, Chuck, you understand this, but we rip apart the natural world on a daily basis, and we rape the world constantly. So we live in essentially a nature-raping society, and if you don't believe that, go figure out where all our oil comes from and what we have that's actually natural that isn't poison, and you'll realize it's almost nothing.
Right,
so
but
we live
the power struggle in and of itself does have a gender-specific sort of nature to it because of the way that things have been encouraged. From a societal standpoint in modern times.
But I think it should be that way.
What should be what way?
Well, I think that men should play a certain role in society and women should play another role.
Well, what about what's natural? I mean, never mind shoulds. What about what actually happens when you let people, be tribal? What you find is that we have these sort of adjustable ways of being, and they change depending on how much food is available, how much land is available, and what kind of culture it has to be. But if you're a foraging society, and if you aren't in great threat of starvation, everybody calms down. Sex becomes more egalitarian. Women and men both have multiple partners, and this role playing that you talk about just doesn't really exist. Everybody participates. Some women maybe the men hunt a little more, but some women hunt, and when the women actually produce more food by being foragers than the men do, and they're recognized for doing that. They're not slaves of the house, and if somebody wants to have a kid with somebody 10 years down the line, they go, yeah, can I have a kid with you had a kid with her. I think we'd have good kids. Okay, go have a kid with her. The ancient Spartans did that anyway. I mean, so many societies around the world have felt that way. Yeah, go have a kid with her. It's fine. Go have a kid with him. Oh, you want to have it? Yeah, okay. You guys would make a good kid. We already had kids, so I don't want to make any more kids with you, so I'm not going to hold you up. We're a much more sharing species, which is where we get our hippie ethos. But right on top of it, we're pretty we're here raping the world. But let's talk about Twilight for a second. I find that people relate to this because it's essentially I think what's one of the most natural kind of relationships is a triangle because it takes the pressure off. It takes a fair amount of pressure, even a great amount of pressure off of each person. In a triangle, there's always a sexual partner for somebody. There's always a helpmate around the house or around the hut. I think that we think that the ménage à trois is some exotic thing. I don't think it's exotic as we think it is. I think that it's probably pretty natural, and that's why we think about it a lot.
Well, I'm not very good at sharing, so I
Well,
couldn't live
maybe
in
you
that
should get over
society.
that.
Well,
Maybe you
no,
should.
no, I
Well, maybe
choose
you should grow up a little and
no,
stop being so selfish.
I choose to be selfish.
Well, maybe you should stop choosing to be so selfish.
I don't like to share,
Well,
and
maybe you should get over that. Maybe that's like saying I'm an alcoholic and being proud of it. Maybe you should stop being so selfish and learn to share better.
no,
Well, then that's a psychological limitation.
there you. Okay,
Well, I mean, you're telling me proudly that you don't like to share, but why don't you tell me that if you saw somebody starving to death, you
I'm
wouldn't like.
talking about my sexual partners.
Well, but maybe that's something that you could think about. Like if it made you well, it's not going to make you happy, so you shouldn't do it. But if you had a sexual partner who said, "Hey, I really like you, but I want to go do this sometimes," what would you say? And by this, I want to go. This is also my friend, and he or she will be a helpmate, and we'll have so much more help, and so on and so forth and so on, and we'll work out the rules.
No, not in my world.
Okay, not in your
I
world.
tried to have this discussion with you one time, a theoretical discussion, remember?
Oh, what you want to go sharing?
No, I didn't say go sharing. I said that, what would you do if the concept were presented to you that another person was, brought into the household and, because we were talking about the concept of polygamy is what we started talking about, multiple
Yes, we
wives,
did
that
because
kind of
we
thing.
were going to live somewhere, and you didn't want to live there because you were afraid that that person would try to fuck me.
Well, yeah, because I thought that would become a focus and a problem. Yeah.
Right, so you don't agree with it either.
No, I didn't say I did. I'm simply saying that we
But he
sort
didn't
of
say
had
that he
this
didn't. He was
discussion
trying to
from a
talk with you about
theoretical.
it.
We had this discussion from a
But
theoretical
hence,
point of view.
that's why we didn't live there.
Because, well, what if you had said, "Yeah, okay," and if that happened, what would you do? But your answer is, "No, no, 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 I won't do that." Uh,
Well,
that's
no, and I'll tell you why. Because I wouldn't want Chuck to do to somebody else what he does to me.
why.
Because,
What does he do to you? He has sex with you. He has vaginal and oral sex with you. I'm just guessing. I don't need to know the details. And he cares about you.
because that's
So
supposed to be mine. That
why is it supposed to be yours? You don't
be,
own him.
No, I don't own him, but
So it's not
that
yours.
that emotional bond, that non-written contract is more important to me than the actual written contract that you get at the courthouse if you get married.
I don't understand. You're saying that because you guys have an ecstatic experience together, he for the rest of his life or time with you will never be able to have an ecstatic experience with anybody else?
Not if he wants to stay with me, no,
Why?
because that's how I play. If
But
he if
why?
because that's
That's not defining. That's just you keep. That's not really an explanation. An explanation would be like, oh, I would be emotionally devastated, and
oh,
the question I would ask would be why. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just trying to ask you why.
Now, he's trying to figure out where you're coming from on this because he doesn't see it the same way that you do.
because
So he's trying to see
well
your
because
perspective.
what I'll only speak for us. What we share together is special, is ours. And if he were to go do that to somebody else, that would one be emotionally devastating, of course, and then it wouldn't seem as though it was special at all. Do you
I
know
mean,
what I mean? Like, I
I
mean,
do know what you mean.
I
I
could
do
go
know.
across the street and fuck my neighbor if I want to.
Yes,
Uh,
but what if it was about, okay, let's say that you take it out of this sort of the childish terms of go fucking a neighbor or anything like that. And let's say that you actually fall in love. Let's say that you fall in love with somebody unexpectedly. You just this person grows on you and grows on you, grows on you, and you say, "God, I love this person." And then Charles one day says, "Well, why don't you go? Listen, I'm exhausted. I want to do this. Why don't you guys go on a vacation for a while and cement your relationship, and then you guys will have a relationship, and you'll have a relationship with me."
Say that again. You lost. I got lost. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
let's take it out of the realm of this fucking the neighbor kind of thing. Everybody always takes it down to these terms that don't really have any value to us because you know
Well,
they
in
act.
this case, it does. But go
Oh,
ahead.
all right, I see. Uh, okay, well, okay. Let me make it specific for the audience. Let's say that you one day, in a few years, the kid's a little more grown. You're spending time with somebody, and you realize that you really love this person. And Charles notices, and he says, "Hey, you really love this person." You go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," but there's nothing else. And he goes, "Are you sure?" And you say, no, 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 there's nothing else. There would never be anything else. And he says, I'm not asking you if there's anything else that you're doing. I'm asking you, do you have other attractions? And you say, no, 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 I would never do that. Well, you have a drink and you go to him later and you go, yeah, I guess there are attractions, but why do you want to know? And he says, well, because I, I wouldn't mind a little extra help. And I think that if you um, bonded with this person, we would have essentially another person who would always be there to help, another partner in this thing, and he would be your friend, and he would be a friend to me, but not the same kind. And I would trust you to negotiate the times that you're with me, and not to just do it with anybody, not just anybody on a whim, but you know, to allow yourself to have more than one love.
No, because I get what I need emotionally and spiritually from Chuck.
Hmm.
I don't need to go look for it anywhere else.
I didn't say that you would need to. My
Nor,
scenario
but I
doesn't.
wouldn't want to.
Well, my scenario doesn't involve what you would want. It involves what would happen if you spent time with somebody and realized that they were great, and Chuck pressed you and said, "Is there an attraction?" And there was. So you have to take my hypothetical to that degree. You're attracted to somebody, and they're a great person.
Okay.
Okay, and then Chuck presses you and says, "Do you think about him?" And you go, "No." And he said, "But do you forbid yourself from thinking about him?" Which you would say, "Yes, I do," because that's what you'd have to do. You'd have to forbid yourself. All right, you're not interested, but let's say Chuck came to you and the same situation was true. And there was a woman around who was very, very helpful, and she really liked you and you really liked her, you guys got along. And you noticed that he probably had all kinds of feelings for her, but he was being really good, hands in the air quotes, and said and you said to him, "Well, I really want to know. If anything happened to me, I really like her. So
Well, there's the key word. If anything ever happened to
So why
me.
does it need to be in a tragedy that we allow ourselves to love more than one person? Why is it only death or dismemberment or this kind of thing that we in the Western world, the whole world, essentially grew up being having these multiple engagements so that you had strong tribal networks. But we're the only ones, in this strange post-Judeo Hebrew thing that follows this ancient blood right of this tribe that allowed men to have 700 wives and women to be slaves.
Well, I don't consider myself a slave to anybody.
No, you don't. And I'm not saying you are one but you're very defensively, in your position. This is what you want. It's what you have. But let's say that you ended up in a different situation environmentally, ecologically, and everybody had to work together or there wouldn't be food. Everybody had to climb trees together or there wouldn't be food. Everybody had to grab grasshoppers together or there wouldn't be food. Everybody had to pitch in to get coconut shells to gather water or there wouldn't be water. Suddenly, this thing where you think you can get everything you need from one person is over. It's a fiction brought to us by the oil state, by the petroleum industry. We don't get everything we need from one person. We get everything we need from the petroleum industry. That's why people can live alone in America and be relatively happy. It's a fiction. It's a myth. It's a late 20th century, early 21st century myth. We are a tribal species. So press up against 15, 18 people a day in close quarters. You're going to hate some of them and you're going to want to fuck some of them.
Well, I agree with that, but you don't have to indulge into every temptation that comes
Why is it
your
a
way
temptation?
either.
Why is it a temptation? Why isn't it a natural urge to bond? And I'm not talking about penetrative sex with everybody. Why isn't it a natural urge to want to...
Hello.
Hey, we just added someone in. Sorry, I was talking before I could introduce you.
I'll just finish my line. Why isn't it, and then the caller, why isn't it a natural urge to just connect with the people
So
in
you
your
guys
tribe?
ain't taking calls right now, or what?
Yeah, we're taking a
No,
call.
we
Go
are. I
ahead.
just didn't get a chance to introduce you because I was in the middle of talking.
217.
Oh, this is Road Dog out of the chat room.
Hey, Road.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I've been listening to the muting and unmuting the show, but you got onto a topic that's kind of like maybe important because you were talking about love and all that, and people doing whatever. But the thing is, the whole point is you have to like somebody before. I mean, love is a lie. I mean, like is more powerful than love. You can't be with nobody if you don't like them.
Well,
But you can be with anybody if you say you love them.
you can be with anybody even if you don't like them. You can just be. Are we going?
Well, I mean, wouldn't that be a fucking waste of time?
Well, what are we talking about? Are we talking about strictly sex? Because I mean, you can go to a bar and have a little too much to drink.
I can go down
home.
and get a fucking hooker on a damn street corner and get sex.
Well, exactly. So, do you like her or no?
All kinds of business.
Well, you don't have to love a damn hooker, fuck.
No, but you can make all kinds of business arrangements. Some people live with somebody because they can't make a living on their own, and they essentially trade themselves for their room and board. So,
Well, I mean, that depends on what the situation is. I mean, if there's a mutual situation there.
Right. Well, that's I only speak for myself. I don't particularly care to engage in multiple sexual partners. I'm perfectly happy.
Well, I mean, we've all done it, though, right?
No, well, I haven't done it all at one time. No.
Well,
But you've done it staggered. You've staggered sexual partners over a period.
I've had.
Well, I mean,
I've had 6 sexual partners in my 44 years of life.
oh,
So you're not
55,
exactly.
and I've only had like 55 or 50 women. So, and a couple times, a few times at the same time.
Hey, road dog.
Hey.
This is a road dog.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would agree that you're aptly named, but I appreciate your candor.
Well,
Who's dialing the phone?
I'm not. I think Road Dog is.
I think Road Dog's accidentally hit.
No, I'm not touching the phone. No, it ain't me.
Oh, something's going on. All right.
Huh. So is that the clue for me to hang up?
Oh no.
Do
Somebody.
you have a question? Do you want us to respond to anything?
There's just somebody dialing the a phone. That's all.
It's an
No, I'm not
accidental
trying to
hit.
get rid of your road.
It's an accidental hit on a keypad from somebody.
Is there something you want to put in the discussion for a roundtable?
Well, the thing is, you know what? You were talking about love and all that bullshit and fucking sex. Fuck. You know what?
Fucking
Fuck,
sex.
sex is a dime a dozen.
Yes, it can be. But I wasn't talking about that kind of thing.
If that's all it's worth.
Well,
okay.
yes, you were. You had that queer on there earlier, and all he was talking about is some dude jacking off on some other dude.
I don't know. Yeah,
I think.
What can anybody say to that? There was there was a queer. I guess you mean a gay man.
Well,
that was because of your discussion about masturbation earlier.
Oh, I see. So that was actually about a guy coming on a girl, but now I see.
I mean, the whole topic tonight was nothing but gay talk. I mean, what the fuck?
God. Actually, we didn't have any gay talk. There was no talk about anal sex. We talked about penises and vaginas.
Oh my God, you guys crack me up, man.
Yeah, right back at you.
Well, if it's fun, man, it's fun, right?
Well, the whole chat room was fucking just rolling or muting.
They were getting mad. That's what I was telling them before.
I guess you have an incredibly terrified group of people who can't have discussions about sex without calling people queers and thinking that everything is gay, or that there's something wrong with men having sex.
Dude, come on.
Sorry?
You got to call a spade a spade.
Do you? So who's the spade?
I mean, if you see a cocksucker sucking a cock, you call him a cocksucker.
Are women cocksuckers? No, I just want to know. Are women also cocksuckers? Yeah, you see? All right, thank you for your time.
Okay. I don't know what that was about, Rode, but thank you for calling. Anyhow.
Very enlightening. Right
if
there.
You want to call that enlightening. All right. Well, basically, we'll go back to what I was trying to say. I'm not one to. Maybe it's old-fashioned. I guess.
Sucker. No, I don't want to change the subject. I don't want to change the subject. I want to ask this question.
What? No, he's
I want to ask this question. I want to ask this question. If men are derogated by being called cocksuckers, why do we all want women to suck our cocks? I mean, if a cocksucker is a bad thing, then why do we all criticize women who won't give blowjobs? This is an astounding piece of psychological inversion. If you really think about it, we're just terrified. Number one, of penises. Number two, of male sexuality. Number three, of women. This culture can't handle women being sexual. Not really. It can't handle them saying, yeah, I would enjoy having sex with who I wanted to have sex with, and not playing all the role of I'll only have sex with one person because God tells me to.
Well, no, I don't do that. I'm not a Christian. I'm a pagan, so I don't go the Christian
Yeah, but your
route.
paganism clings very tightly to the Judeo-Christian line.
No, I just choose.
Little.
I choose to commit myself to one person.
Okay, I'm not going to criticize you for that, but it seems that you don't give a feeling to the idea that it's not actually what we are as a species. I mean, as a species, we're tribal. We're a foraging species. Sex was part of making kids, but it's also part of fun. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We have sex for fun. And we don't have sex just for spiritual bonding, and we don't have sex to debase ourselves. We just have sex, and I don't just mean penetrative sex. I don't mean vaginal sex. I just mean we touch and love and canoodle and have sensual acts because they make us feel good. If you want to be an evolutionary biologist about it, you could say that we bond this way, that we produce serotonin, endorphins, oxytocin, and dopamine. And There it is. I mean,
You see,
the idea. Why are we
that's
so afraid of penises? Why do we hate women so much that we call men cocksuckers?
that's the whole discussion that I was trying to have with you last week, where I was explaining to you that yeah, all of that is done for exactly the reasons you just noted, that it does create all those wonderful chemicals in the brain, that it does feel good and all that, but really the primal motive for seeking out that and the mechanism, I do still believe it is essentially, you know, for breeding. That's what it's for.
But it's not primarily for breeding because we have sex 364 and a quarter whatever days a year. I mean, women have sex when they're already pregnant. They want to. They have sex when they can't get pregnant. They have sex after they have menopause. We want to have sexual activity before we can get pregnant. We want to have sexual stimulation before that. So
And
it's not.
people can eat, irrespective of their need for sustenance as well.
No,
It
but
doesn't
we don't. Yeah,
necessarily
but we
mean.
don't want to. We don't want to eat when we're. If you're eating whole foods, you don't want to eat when. If you're eating sugar and fake food, of course, you never have. What do you call it? Your appestat is never satisfied. You never really shut off. But if you get out of the processed food thing, but sex with two people is great, and sex with three people is great, and partner sex, two partner sex is great, and people who've had rooms with full of five people enjoy the sex. Um,
Well, that's fine for somebody that
You can,
that chooses that, and I don't.
I
again,
know, I know you don't choose it. I'm not trying to make this. I'm trying to just have a clinical discussion of what we are as a species. I'm not advocating that you do this.
no, I get it. I'm just saying to you that, again, you can also just eat for pleasure as well. You can also just eat to experience a food. You can eat all sorts of different things, but what you actually are, your drive to, be hungry and all of that is based on something other than your pleasure.
But I think that I hear what you're saying, and it's an interesting argument. I just don't think that it is a transferable argument because we want to have sex when we can't do all these other things. And we generally, I mean, if you're healthy and you're eating whole foods, you don't, it hurts you. You don't really want to
No, I'm not
eat.
necessarily, but then again, you don't necessarily. I mean, most people don't just want to have sex 24 hours a day either.
Well, I wouldn't mind.
Come on. A lot of men and a lot of women would like to have much more sex than they're having.
Well,
And they
that
don't want
could
to
be.
have kids. They don't want to have kids as a result.
That
So
that could be, but then again, lots of people do wish to eat a lot of things, and they don't necessarily want to get fat either.
I,
Uh,
I still think that you're missing the argument. I hear where you're going with it, but I think that we actually have sex. And by sex, I hate the word sex because it only means one thing. I'd almost prefer another
not
word.
to me, not to me.
Well, good,
I
because you're a
recognize
very interesting guy, and you're way past the median line of normal. You're well into your own sort of interesting experience of the world. But sex to most people means one thing. But so I'm going to use the word intimacy. And intimacy, I don't mean penetrative sex. I mean
no, that's
touching,
fine too. Yeah.
canoodling, etc. People want to have intimacy that can involve 20 different ways of being intimate. I think 20 is a good fair number for the number of things that we could come up with. Maybe even 7. Different kinds of oral, different kinds of petting, different kinds of kissing, different ways of holding, all that kind of stuff. Different hand
Sure.
touching. So you come up with these varieties of things. Say that it's really just a big 7. Maybe I'll come up with a big list of 7, and then ask yourself, we want to do that. It gives us dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. If you stuff yourself with food, you'll make a little bit of extra serotonin, but you also become very depressed because your body can't handle it. But the same isn't true of people who, if you masturbate a few times a day, you don't get obese, you don't get really sick. The Catholic Church tried to tell you that you would get sick, but they lied. They were mind controllers.
Oh, I'm not saying that sex is, potentially more healthy for you than eating. I'm not saying that sex is not potentially more pleasurable than eating. I'm simply saying that the two things are primal necessities to the human creature. That's my understanding.
Nobody can disagree with you that sex is required for all sexually reproductive creatures, but we don't have
As we
sex.
define it, yeah.
But we don't have sex like other creatures do. Creatures that reproduce for sex rarely have sex. They rarely touch each other in that way. They rarely penetrate each other. The creatures that have sex for social bonding, bonobos, chimps, for example, have sex all the time, and they don't have sex to make babies. They make babies sometimes, but making babies is a separate function. Sex itself serves a function, and we are that creature for whom sex itself serves a function. That's why it's been so effective for the state to manage us by managing our sexual identity. That's why, to be fair, I push back on this notion that we really, I'm going to be good by, confining myself to one person for 70 years or 50 years or whatever. I think it's a myth invented by people who want to manage you. The best way to manage you is by your deepest need. Sex is how we actually empower ourselves, how we create closeness in our tribe. Sense, intimacy, touch, canoodling, whatever, kissing, hugging, being close, sharing warm moments. And I'm not saying you should do this with everybody, but why would you say you should only do it with one person? You might do it with 5 over a lifetime. You might have 2 important partners at a time. I could handle a partner who had another partner. It wouldn't bother me as long as I was on the schedule. I mean, I'm not that demanding.
Right.
No, it's an interesting notion, but what I'm trying to say is that, we seek shelter out of a need. It doesn't necessarily follow that, we need shelter in order to survive. It doesn't necessarily follow that all intimacy leads to pregnancy, but the motivation by which this is part of our being, I do believe, is for that purpose.
I know you've said so, and
Yeah.
I guess we just disagree because it's irrefutably necessary. But if you look at animals, the majority of life on Earth that exists, whose sexual nature exists for the sole purpose of reproduction, they rarely ever have sex. Sex is an incredibly quick, non-exciting event.
Well, I'm not saying it's the sole purpose. I'm saying it's the primary purpose.
It's not the primary purpose. And if you look at the way, well, okay, it's impossible to say that reproduction isn't a primary purpose. But if you look at the way that we have sex, we like to prolong it. We like it to feel as good as possible. We like to have many, many, many orgasms, and we're very adept and creative at ways of preventing pregnancy. Every tribe in the world is good at preventing pregnancy with grasses, herbs, and different minerals that they'll eat, different concoctions that they'll make, and figuring out when ovulation and menstruation is, et cetera, et cetera. The old Hebrews were very excited when a Hebrew woman would be very excited when she got pregnant because it meant she could finally have as much sex as she wanted to. So I think that we bond. All right. Let me come up with a counter argument. Imagine that there was no Judeo-Christian ethos around sex, and the only ethos around sex were 2 things: don't give people herpes, don't give people syphilis, don't give people chlamydia, gonorrhea, etc. And if you're pregnant, then you have to have a support structure for that child, whether it's your house, whether it's your extended family, or the extended family of your partner. It's up to you. But there's no judgment about it. Now you get into a relationship, and I'll make it from my point of view. The woman, let's say I'm seeing a woman who is attractive, and I like her. And let's say that she also is seeing a guy. Let's say that she's seeing another girl, right? Now I could say, well, you have to choose her or me. And she says, well, why would I have to do that? I love you both. And I say, but you don't really love me if you also love her. And she says, well, she says, well, but I love you, and I love her, and I love my mom, and I love my dad, and I love my sisters, and I love my brothers. And I say, but you have sex with me, and you have sex with, and she says, well, haven't you had sex with anybody else? And I say, yeah, I've had sex with 15, 20, 30 other people. Well, maybe you don't love me. Maybe you only love them. And she's got me. I mean, I have to say, okay, I guess you can have sex with your girlfriend, and I will also have sex with you. So what's wrong with that?
Well, nothing's wrong with that so long as everybody's comfortable with it. But here's the thing. If you define this in your own self as a one-at-a-time kind of function, I'm nobody to argue with that either. You know what I'm saying? If you choose to have, 6 partners simultaneously, and everybody's...
Come on, that's so
thrilled.
How would you juggle that, honestly?
I've seen it done. But
How
the
about
thing,
two partners? I mean, can we
well,
just
fine. We'll keep it nice and simple. Sure, two partners. If this is all fine among the three of you, I don't have any objection to it. It's all fine and dandy, and it doesn't matter what the mix is, as far as I'm concerned. But the thing is, if somebody else, in their own being, uh, only can process one at a time, and they believe that their intensity relies upon that, and they think that it is an act of love to only be involved in that singular relationship, I don't feel as though I have a right to argue with that at all.
but this isn't a discuss this well that's not really a discussion about anything. Of course, that's the standard protocol. That's what we're supposed to think. So
Mhm.
everybody, of course, is going to go back to that default position. So I'm advocating discussion about another position.
Yeah, and I'm fine
I
with
can't.
it. That's
Nobody's going to
that's
do anything because I say it. Nobody,
right.
absolutely nobody. Um, that's yeah. No, nobody's going to go, hey, that guy, that queer, apparently, on the radio, uh, who talked about the idea that maybe monogamy isn't exactly what we are, changed my mind by saying whatever he said, and now I'm going to have six partners. I don't. Nobody's going to do that.
Mhm.
So instead of just saying, well, of course I'm not going to argue with anybody, no, let's argue about what it means and why we think. I mean, I'd prefer to argue about why we think we're in this particular way of thinking about it, because there are some historical arguments that we inherit that we didn't actually invent. And I think it might surprise people to know that we didn't invent this thing that we think.
Mhm.
We didn't invent the banking system.
No, but even with the exploration of all, of many different options, many different possibilities, configurations to one's love life, if you examine all of them, or if you examine a good number of them, and you come to the conclusion that, that this is what is best for you,
But
most
Charles,
conducive
that's
to
not
your
what people
happiness.
do. That's not what people do. People who are devout Christians don't become world philosophers and examine spirituality from 17 points of view. They were raised in something and they accept it, and then they
See,
fight. They
see,
fight for it.
that's where I'm a strange guy. you know.
You're an interesting guy. You're very bright. You're bright as hell. But people don't tend to experience many things and then choose one. They just are raised, and the power of our parental, and by parental I mean our extended cultural influence on us, is profound. It took me 43 years to realize that. Whereas all essentially, all men are attacked when they're in infancy. We all have our penises attacked by men who hurt our bodies. I mean, talk about making you feel like your body isn't quite your own, or certainly this thing that will eventually become your sexual organ isn't your own. You're going to lose a lot of the nerves in it anyway. I mean, we actually attack young boys. If you really think about it, everybody's opposed to clitoral removal. Well, we don't remove the clitoris when you do a male circumcision, but you do hurt the penis. You hurt it. You make it bleed, and you take off some protective material.
Mhm.
Why do we do that? We inherit these things. We don't invent them. And then to defend it, you have to realize that it's very easy to defend in an indoctrinated position. It's very, very easy to defend.
No, the status quo is the simplest thing to defend. I understand that, but I mean, it's just not. It's not where I'm coming from. I don't just defend it simply because it's the easiest and most accessible default position. Not at all. I'm not even defending it necessarily. I'm just engaging in the idea that it is possible that some people could find that is the most conducive thing to their own particular happy place, as it were. And
Uh,
that's just as fine to me as any other solution.
right, but that just cuts short any real conversation, because then you just say, well, whatever floats your boat, and then you stop talking about it. So
Well,
if
no, not
that's
at all. I find it very interesting because, as you state, a lot of society simply accepts things based on what is. Like I say, again, the status quo is is that way, and that's what I'm going to do because that's what it is, and they don't necessarily take apart every single thing,
I'd
and
say that you're raised in Iran,
mm,
and you're a Muslim, and you're a woman, and so you have to hide yourself from men because women provoke feelings in men which make them sin. And you know this to be a fact because when women go about not protecting the men from the things in women that make them sin, women become attacked or are ogled or handled. And you know that that's the fault of God who made women sinful to men. You know this for a fact because it's proven by reality. What do you say to that? I mean, this is what you're telling me essentially. Now, we don't, we think, well, that's not true. Men just, they're just giving an excuse. It's just what you grew up with. It's not true.
Well, I didn't have our son circumcised.
Thank you.
Oh, you're
No,
welcome.
very much appreciate that.
I didn't see the need for it, really.
Well, thank you. I
Okay.
mean, as a male, thank you from the bottom of my seminiferous tubules.
Well, I mean, when he gets older, if that's something he chooses to
Oh,
do, but
please.
my
No guy's
God,
going to say, please cut
I
off part of my penis when he's
I
older.
knew one guy who was older and he decided to do it, and I tell you what, I felt horrible for him. The amount of pain that poor man was in, I, ouch, ow.
no, I see it as unnatural, so I think it's preferable to kind of leave them as intact as possible.
Well,
So,
I had read something too on one of the, I think it was one of the non-vax um, groups that I'm part of in Facebook.
Mm.
They had said something about circumcising the child does something with the autism, something like that. Do you know if that's true or not?
No, I only know my conclusion that it's psychologically scarring and that it sends a message through the body that your sex life really isn't your own. That's what I take from it.
What was that?
Uh, that it sends a message psychologically through the body that your sex life is not your own. That's what you know that's what you get. You're a very small person. You have no language. You have limited perceptions, high sensitivities. You're a total subject, slave of your environment and anybody who will do anything for you. You can be, you can die in days if people, really in a day or two, if people don't feed you or water you or change you. Um, so
Well, he's also not. He hasn't been vaccinated either.
yes, and that's wonderful.
You can still see the brightness in his eyes, and the life is there. And I'm really worried about them passing this, if that's what they're, I hope they don't, where they make it a law where you have to vaccinate your children.
Oh, there will be no passage of a law that says
You
you
know,
have to. There'll be an incredible pushback, and you'll see, real fighting in the streets because the medical literature about vaccination is very straightforward and clear. It says that it's an incredible poison. So good luck with that. I mean, they're creating essentially an underground nation that will not participate. And they can, there's a they, and I guess they can try to manage 320 million people, but it's not really going to work out because this society is going down the drain. And as we lose oil pressure in all the machines that we run over the next 10 years, it's going to be it's going to be impossible to manage. And you'll see draconian measures in cities, but people are creative in finding ways to opt out the same way they did in the old old Soviet Union.
mm,
People opt out all over the place. They create little networks of things that work. And this, but back to circumcision and sex. Circumcision sends a message to a male that his penis is essentially not his own, and I think that it shapes male identity in a caustic way. It makes us feel that sex is traumatic, and makes us from like almost before we have words, makes us feel that sex has to be some sort of trauma-inducing act, and reduces our sensitivity psychologically, emotionally to interpersonal sex acts, which is, I guess, answers the question we started with, which is why do women like the Twilight series? Because the male is sensitive. He essentially has his foreskin put back. He listens. He's not afraid of being called a queer by uh, drunken callers.
Yeah, well, is that true though? About because again, I'm not a man, so I don't know. Does it do some when you are circumcised? Does it do something to the?
I don't know what happens if you hit a child in the face who's too young, who's pre-verbal. You know, you have to ask the people who study serial killers and psychological problems that occur later in life.
Right. Well, I guess that's true.
I
But
mean, we attack every male child physically. Every male, or almost every male child gets attacked in the hospital in the most sensitive, enervated part of their body. I can't think of a better way to send a message that your life, your sex, your desires are not your own. It's very clear.
right, right. Well, that's where I was going with the vaccination thing for a minute there because my child is my child, not the government's child. And if you can't tell me that I have to put this poison into my baby. You know what I mean?
Yes, and good. And the more people say that, I guess people will always say the more people they have to round up, or they'll say the harder a fight they have. Because if you bring the information, the actual technical information about vaccines, it becomes very clear that these are just toxins that you inject into small bodies, and they have terrible effects. And if you don't bring that information, I guess you get beat up on Facebook. But yeah, it's a huge fight, and there are now millions of autistic children because they've been injected with metals and animal proteins and cellular detritus and whatever. We just live in a collapsing society. There's no way around that.
Right. Well, that's true. He only got the vitamin K shot, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was, I couldn't stop him because I had to be put under for him to be taken out. And before Chuck could even turn around, the needle was in him. So that was it. Nothing else goes in my child's body. That's it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Kimberly, I thank you for letting me run my four-wheeler through your show, talking about these crazy things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go.
You know what? You can't make everybody happy. I gave up doing that a long time ago. Too frustrating. Gives me a headache.
And just for everybody's clarification, during the Jaded show,
it's my show. I do the typing.
Kim is in control, and she actually just uses my chat ID because this way we don't have to switch anything around. So just so everybody knows, this is Kim's show. I just happen to be here. During my show, I control it. During Kim's show, she controls it. That's all there is to it.
And I don't like disrespectful people. Period. I don't treat people with disrespect. I don't expect to be treated that way either. So if that's how it's going to be, that's how it's going to be. Just know the rule before you get on it. That's where I'm at with it.
I mean, you noticed there was a difference between when you were on with me, Liam, and when you're on with Kim, right?
I don't know both of you well enough. Kim's show is a little wild wester. We bring in callers, and it's interesting. And I don't really know you guys well enough. I'm amazed at and interested in of your tolerance for a variety of subjects and also the depth of sexual discussion. Seems interesting to me. It's unusual.
Well, I've said it many times. I'll talk about just about anything. And
yeah, I mean, for somebody who wouldn't like to try things the way that I would, and I wouldn't suggest them to you. You're tolerant of the conversation, and I appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome.
Yes, it's a sign of, I don't know, a certain integrity, and it's kind of cool.
Well, I live by the motto of, you know what, let live, let be, whatever it is. I don't even know. I've had too many.
Let bees live.
There it is. Let bees live. Yes.
Let all the bees live.
Let's bring some of those bees back to life too.
Yes.
That would be nice.
Who the hell am I to judge anybody? Shit, I've made my fair share of mistakes. Enough to carry me over for the next 3 lives I might happen to live. That I'll be punished for, I'm sure. So, I'm the last person to judge anybody on anything. I just don't like disrespect. That's probably my biggest pet peeve. That, and the other one too, real quick, is if you hold the door open for somebody, I cannot stand when they just walk right through it and don't even give you a thank you. It's like, oh, excuse me, here you go. Oh, Queen Bee just walked in the door. I'm not standing there holding the door for you. I was trying to be polite. So what I do now is if I see somebody who's just going to walk right through it, I let it go.
Something I meant to mention to you earlier, Liam, when you were talking about the novelization of part of your life. I once submitted part of a novelization of my life story, and from a letter sent back to me from some of the people that are involved with publishing stuff like the National Enquirer and other trash mags like that. They actually sent me back a note explaining that although I had stated at the beginning of my treatise, as it were, that it was based on a true story, that it was absolutely, unbelievably too strange to be true.
Mm.
So I always find that one funny.
Yeah,
it is funny.
Got quite an interesting history.
Mm.
Make your head spin.
Well, do you ever want to do anything with it? Or is it just,
I've been
does it
trying
die
to
with you?
I've been trying to find a place to put it, actually. I've considered just pretty much writing it out by hand for my kids. That's about it.
Why don't you blog a book? Put a blog that says My Life Story. Just put out bits, and you'll develop a following for your crazy life. And eventually those will be collected and put into a book.
That is a pretty good idea.
Mine would be one page, because I was just an incorrigible juvenile.
I was thinking that it would make a really good HBO series, actually.
Yeah, everything looks like it would be a good series, but it takes, God, so talk about cocksucking. It's really who you know and who you blow.
It always has to go back to that.
Cocksucking, yeah. It's so hard to get. It's so hard to get that kind of thing done. So, but you could build I would be among the people reading your blog regularly. So, yeah. I'm gonna be putting up parts of the book that I have written that I'm now editing, and the book will be for pre-sale in 2 weeks, and then for sale a week later. And it is a book about it's fictionalized autobiography. So it's fictionalized. I'm not claiming this is pure autobiography, and I wouldn't want to. It's
Right.
too hard to write pure autobiography. It's just too hard psychologically. You have to tell too much.
We're down to about 2 minutes.
And that's it.
Real
And thank
quick.
you.
What? Oh, he's gone.